Will Mahama's presidential jet policy help the Ghanaian film industry? This is a question that Darrell Kwewu, host of Marketplace on Joy News, asked Kenneth Awotwe Darko, a cultural journalist, with regards to the statement or the policy that Mahama wants to implement when the jet finally returns. And this, Mahama said that he already implemented in his first term. The question is this: will it help the Ghanaian film industry? This is a question that all of us are going to find answers to on this very episode. And also in Indonesia, the government has unveiled a cultural blueprint to help drive growth in the film industry. We're going to take a look at this particular policy that they've implemented, which was published on the Variety, and how that is really going to impact the film industry in Indonesia, and possibly find out how that can also impact our own industry in Africa. This and more is what I'm bringing to you in this very episode of the Film Mandate. I am Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Film Mandate, and I'm grateful unto you for joining me for this very episode. So, diving right away into the first story, we have the president of Ghana launching the Black Star Experience a couple of days ago. And in launching the Black Star Experience, it made known that in his first term, he instituted a policy on the jet that only Ghanaian films would show on the screens. And he reiterated the fact that he's going to do same for this second term of his. And the question has been that will Mahama's presidential jet policy help revive the Ghanaian cinema or the Ghanaian film industry? This is an article that was published out of an excerpt of an interview on Joy News on their Joy Online web portal. So we'll be taking a look at it briefly and also discuss it further. So let's go. On May 2nd, the Marketplace on Joy News analyzed President John Mahama's recent comments on boosting the local movie industry. At the launch of the Black Star Experience on May 1st, the president announced that only Ghanaian films will be shown on the presidential jet, a policy he first introduced during his previous administration. To unpack what this means for the creative sector, culture journalist Kenneth Awotwe Darko joined host Darrell Kwewu to assess the implications. So we'll be taking a look at this video briefly, and how that has is possibly is going to have an impact on the Ghanaian cinema, So I'll be playing this briefly, and then we can delve into it. Let me just, yeah. So let me bring it up, and then we can
Okay,
take a look
welcome
at
to
it.
Show Business. Time to have a lighter conversation, but a very important one. Today we are discussing President John Mahama's recent comments on boosting the local movie industry. At the launch of the Black Star Experience yesterday, the president announced that only Ghanaian films will be shown on the presidential jet.
Sorry, let me
A
take it
policy he
again.
first
I
introduced.
want to make sure it fills the whole screen. Okay, it looks like it's not possible. So kindly bear with me, and then let's watch it as it is right now. Okay, so let's go again.
Okay, welcome to Show Business. Time to have a lighter conversation, but a very important one. Today we are discussing President John Mahama's recent comments on boosting the local movie industry. At the launch of the Black Star Experience yesterday, the president announced that only Ghanaian films will be shown on the presidential jet, a policy he first introduced during his previous administration. To unpack what this means for the creative sector, I'm joined, not in studio, on Zoom by culture journalist Kenneth Awotwe Darko. Good afternoon to you, Ken. I'd like to get this out of the way before we start. Ghanaians are asking, where in the world are you?
Daryl, we'll discuss this. We'll discuss this off the camera. I don't know why you're allowing Ghanaians to ask this
Nobody is
question, but
concerned.
I know it's very important to ask. But yeah, we'll talk about it later.
In the
Daryl.
presidential jets, maybe where there will be Ghanaian films showing, I bet. So, I mean, this directive by the president purely symbolic, or could it have a real economic benefits for filmmakers?
So this is, I mean, as much as is symbolic, it is something that, if followed through, will be very exciting for the Ghanaian scene. I mean, it sends quite a strong, a message about prioritizing what local content actually is. So we all know how much of a pride that the presidential jet is, and so to have the jet that carries the president of the land, talk about the fact that it's going to only exclusively be showing local films. I think it's sort of puts the visibility that the space has in terms of the international front, and also kind of instill some sort of prestige among filmmakers who are making sure that they portray the culture of their country. And so, Daryl, as you rightly mentioned, in as much as it's quite symbolic, it's also a step towards promoting the industry in a very good way, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how this act by the president will help the movie industry. I mean, if it comes to the reasons why our movies are not maybe well marketed or are not doing so well, perhaps it's because of quality, not no.
So, of course, the president just mentioning it does not mean that it's just a magic wand that's going to happen. I mean, the industry needs to come together to make this quite a holistic approach, because there are so many challenges that are already bedeviling the industry when it comes to film and then the creative sector as a whole. Because there's the issue of funding, there's the issue of modern cinema, there's also the issue of streaming partnerships, which is not talked about enough. So this is quite a very good step if the presidency quite leads by example, where it's something that could pressure other institutions to come together. And in terms of like the various players in the industry, like you can talk about the airlines industry, you can talk about the hoteliers industry, the ministries, the government organizations that are in charge are supposed to be making sure that all of these frameworks work hand in hand to ensure that there's some sort of consistency that follows this directive. And so it's a policy that's, beyond, it goes beyond just the administration, basically. There has to be like real investments that can see the film industry go globally and compete with the other industries that are, up in the industry when it comes to film.
Well, one quick
Okay, so yeah, I'll leave the link in the description below so that if you want to take a look at the entire interview, you can. A couple of episodes ago, I did talk about the Black Star experience, and particularly this very policy that President Mahama wants to reinstitute in the presidential jet. And I stress on the fact that perhaps when it's extended into the nation or the industry as a whole, that would have a positive effect. I would bring up the fact that the President John Ejekunkofo some time back brought about a policy with regards to the music industry where he advocated for 70% airplay and then 30% airplay for sorry local music and then 30% for foreign music, and that had a positive ripple effect on the industry. And I think uh, when same is done, particularly maybe in a different format, but on our screens, that may help with the industry as a whole. I think recently the NFA, National Film Authority, cracked the whip on ensuring that only those who have the rights to air the permission to air content in general, whether local or foreign, should be encouraged to do so on the TV screens. And I believe that it's taking effect or it's going to take effect with time. But with regards to this particular policy, just as Kenneth said, the president leading by example may set a pace and a trend for other institutions to follow suit. And that is indeed encouraging because, yes, leadership by example would then cause a greater ripple effect. But that would not be enough. But this policy, not as I said in my previous episode, not entirely 100%, but rather a greater percentage should be given to the Ghanaian films or African films to ensure that the taste and desire for it is nurtured. It's nurtured. It has to be deliberate, to bring about a desire for Ghanaian films, particularly in going to the cinemas to watch them, and also whether it's on streaming platforms, patrons accessing these films to help boost the Ghanaian film industry. And so it is indeed a good thing, but it has to be extensive enough. These policy has to be extensive enough to encourage all stakeholders in the industry to embrace it and make it work. Because if you look at the film industry, it needs not just, I've been saying this a couple of times, that the industry, I believe, as a whole, need three things or three factors. You need policy, you need infrastructure, and you need also policy, infrastructure, and data. These three coming together would help any industry, not necessarily the film industry, but any industry, because as I have been saying, policy would then make investors confident enough to want to invest in the film industry if they find it conducive enough. Recently, we had President Donald Trump, uh, declaring that he's going to slap 100% tariff on films produced outside the US, as to whether that refers to just American productions outside or foreign productions, or foreign productions that may come into the country. That is yet to be seen, but it looks like that is what he implied, and that is already causing a rift in Hollywood and foreign investors who may want to continue to invest in Hollywood films. So it is indeed a key thing when the right policies are put in place. It then encourages investment, encourages all other things to help an industry grow. We can take a look at a number of the or a number of countries, even within the United States, but a number of countries are encouraging or incentivizing film productions such that it encourages Hollywood and other big, productions to troop into those countries to be able to shoot films and therefore creating investment. And I believe that this policy should be all encompassing, not just films being shown on screen, but it should also incentivize for investors to want to come into Ghana or Africa to help boost the morale of the film industry. So yes, this is one policy that is a step in the right direction, but not just the viewing of films on screen, but we also need to look at an aspect where the needed investment required to help boost the industry is adhered to. And also there should be a way where internally production companies should ensure that the quality of their films is top notch to be able to compete on the global stage. Because whether we like it or not, this policy won't stop patrons of cinema wanting to watch foreign films, which, yes, I wouldn't say they shouldn't. I myself, I like foreign films. But then, if the quality compared to other qualities of foreign films cannot match them boot for boot, it becomes a challenge. And then individuals would end up patronizing foreign films. And then there are so many options now. So individuals may not watch or may watch, some may watch films on television, but there are so many options like the Netflixes, the Amazons, all those streaming platforms. It's still accessible in the country. So if the quality provided is not good enough to match up with those options that are available, this policy in a way may work for the traditional television stations, but then online it may not really do much, because then the options are still available for patrons of films to watch. So this policy must be well crafted, and then in the long term, policy and must go hand in hand with data and infrastructure to help uplift the quality of the Ghanaian cinema as a whole. So it is a step in the right direction, but the details of those policy must be well crafted to indeed help the industry as a whole. So yeah, and it is something that must this discussion must be ongoing to help facilitate a better stance for the industry. Yeah, so this wraps up my first story for today's episode. And going from Ghana to Indonesia, Indonesia has come up with a policy to help, or rather, with a blueprint to help they boost up growth in their film industry or their film sector. So let's take a look at an article published in Variety by written by Naman Ramachandran. I hope I got it right. So let's go ahead. Indonesia unveils new cultural blueprints with focus on film industry growth. And the reason why I want to bring back this is the fact that when we are talking about our need to have Ghana's film industry revive, there is the need to have a plan, a very intentional plan to make this work. So I would like us to take a quick look at this article and then we can follow through with that. So Indonesia's first ever Minister of Culture, Fadli Zon, has outlined an ambitious blueprint for the nation's cultural growth with special emphasis on developing the country's rapidly expanding film industry. This is the first time for Indonesia to have a new Ministry of Culture. This is a new chapter for cultural development under President Prabowo Subianto's administration. Zone tells Variety in an exclusive interview at the Hong Kong Film Mart Market. The newly established ministry is guided by Indonesia's constitutional mandate, which Zone notes has been in place for 80 years, requiring the state to advance Indonesia's national culture within global civilization by ensuring the freedom of society to preserve and develop its cultural values. The ministry's strategy rests on three key pillars: protection and revitalization of cultural heritage, cultural diplomacy, and development of the cultural economy through digital innovation. The latter specifically targets film industry growth, which Zone describes as experiencing rapid growth with more than 200 films produced last year and cinema audiences exceeding 80 million. Among the challenges facing Indonesia's film sector, Zon identifies the shortage of skilled scriptwriters as a key bottleneck. To address this, the ministry is implementing capacity building initiatives, including master classes, training programs, student competitions, and industry collaborations. Our vision is to preserve Indonesia's rich storytelling traditions and position Indonesia as a competitive player in the global cultural creative economy, Zon explains. To put matters in context, films from Indonesia now routinely get selected and win prizes at major international festivals. The local market in Indonesia, which has the fourth largest population in the world with 283 million, is rapidly expanding with homegrown productions accounting for a significant share of the local box office. Indonesia is also bolstering its cultural policies that include an annual $13 million international co-production grant. The co-production grant. The government is working to accelerate funding through an endowment fund, which with match funding schemes to support the film industry's economic potential. When asked about plans for international production incentives, Zon indicated that while specific tax breaks are still being developed, the immediate focus is on streamlining procedures. We try to make the procedure and the process easier and shorter. It's important for us to have this kind of exchange reciprocally with other countries. He says, adding that international productions would help promote Indonesian culture, tourism landscape, and cultural values. Zone emphasizes the importance of international festivals and markets like the Hong Kong Film Mart in sustaining Indonesia's growing global presence and in television and in film and television. Networking is very important for Indonesian filmmakers, Zon says. With the culture of globalization, we have to cooperate with each other. He highlights regional networks such as AFAN, Asian Film Commission's network, as, as crucial platforms for dialogue and exchange for best practices within the industry. The ministry is also revitalizing cultural centers across Indonesian provinces as to serve as creative hubs for the film industry alongside other cultural initiatives. Yeah, so other cultural initiatives. So yes, it is indeed a very deliberate or extensive plan, I must say, and it looks like a blueprint that would really work because seeing how they are positioned Indonesia, it is quite interesting. One of the things that I think it is key to this plan is the fact that he said networking, and with about 18 million cinema going audience or cinema lovers or film lovers, it looks like it is indeed the right blueprint for their industry. But the key thing is that they are looking at networking not for co-productions and to even help make this a possibility. The fact that they have a $13 million co-production grant is quite interesting. And then for a little explanation into that, I think it is the smart strategy looking at the fact that this co-production grants would then invite in foreign filmmakers to come and partner with them to do perhaps a story that may integrate not just their Indonesian culture but with that of others. You know, this co-production grants, when properly harnessed, will indeed help extend Indonesia's or export rather Indonesia's culture to the outside world. Because once you do a co-production with any company in a foreign land, the tendency now becomes that once the film is done, it won't just be aired in that country that you shot in, but it also will be aired in your country that you are coming from to that collaborated with that particular country. So it then ends up being a cultural export for Indonesia, which is a smart move, which is indeed a smart move, meaning that it's going to expand the potential cinema going audience beyond the 80 million they have internally by roping in other cultures, externally as well. And that is really a smart move. That is really a smart move. The other um, things they spoke about in there really spoke well to me. The fact that they are also looking at building capacity is so interesting. And they identifying that the key challenge they have in their film industry growth is script writers or script writing. And most or all filmmakers will tell you that the strength of a story or a film starts with good scripts, good scripts. And that is something that I think I admire about what the minister said. In as much as they are looking, they have oversight as to whatever they want to do, they're also looking at the very basic or building block of a film, and that is script writing. If the script is terrible, it doesn't matter how qualified or how qualified or skillful the filmmakers are, it's still going to end up bad. And yes, vice versa. If you also have a good script and then the experts are not good enough, it will fail. So I like the fact that they are looking at the entire um, chain, the entire film production chain, to ensure that when a script is that good, the people are also well trained to be able to deliver on the promises in the script. And that is really exciting. That is really exciting. And I think this speaks to any film industry worldwide. Whatever this particular blueprint is indeed something worth emulating, as I might say, being biased for Ghana and Africa, because there are good stories all over, especially in Ghana and Africa. But the challenge has always been that is it well captured in a script, and beyond that, the production crew well qualified enough to deliver on the promises of the script. And yes, we have qualified and expert filmmakers who are good in cinematography and all that. But I remember some time back, if I'm not mistaken, the our veteran actor, legendary David Donto, said something about we lacking, quality scripts in the country, or not having the necessary experts to deliver top-notch quality script. You may have stories that are okay, but especially when we are competing in a global village, there is the need for top-notch scripts to be written to be able to even attract the necessary funding for a script. No investor will just invest in the personnel or stars. They would want to invest in script. And in the world over, we've come to realize that good scripts indeed helps even make good box office numbers when it's finally on screen. And that is something that we need to really take a look at, not just in terms of script, but this entire blueprint is indeed going to help. I believe is indeed going to help Indonesia if implemented right. If implemented right. And I think such a blueprint ought to be adapted or adopted by Ghanaian film industry and the African film industry. We don't just have to be in a hurry to churn out films, but we need to make sure that we have the necessary blueprint or framework that will help churn out the best films to compete on the global stage. Globalization is not going anywhere. So whatever we are producing, we should have the long-term plan in understanding that this film is not just meant for our audiences locally, but it's also going to travel beyond the borders of our continent. So yeah, this blueprint indeed is a step in the right direction for Indonesia, and I believe anybody who would also craft a similar thing for their own industry is going to benefit likewise. So yeah, kudos to the Indonesian film industry, and I hope that they are able to implement it, and let's see how positive it's going to be for others to follow suit. So yeah, this indeed wraps up my stories for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have different opinions, or any view or question you want to ask, you can drop it in the comment section below. So thank you so much for joining me for this very episode of the Film Mandate. I'll be coming your way again tomorrow. I am Papa Otu, and therefore see you soon.